Welcome to another episode of Exceptional TV with me, your host, Alex Granger, right here on YouTube. Today, really excited to be speaking and having a conversation with a good friend of mine, Cyrus Rogers. He's an MC, he's a professional speaker, and he's a host on Kwese Sport with one of my favorite sports, basketball. So I'm looking forward to chatting to him right now. Right, this is why we play. Don't you like that hashtag, Cyrus? Welcome to Exceptional TV.
No, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, we kickstart every episode by asking the question, Umubani, who are you? Who is Cyrus Rogers?
You know, it's such a deep question. I mean, of all the questions to start with, I think, let me start with where I come from. Right. So, born and raised in Zimbabwe, in Harare.
Right.
To a sports-mad family. My dad was in sports administration. My mom loved sports, so we always grew up with the sense of the excitement around every single sport there was.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what it was. My dad played basketball for the national team.
Yes. No, your dad's a legend, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have to bow down. He definitely.
But you played as well?
Not to that level. Okay. I did play a little bit, but more. You know, at high school level, you always make it as competitive as possible. Yeah. But growing up in a sports background and understanding that, you know, you understand how Zimbabwean families are very.
Zimbo.
You know, there's a sense of discipline, and also understanding respect.
True.
And these are the kinds of things that sport gives you. So when you have that in the family sense, and then you take that to the field of competition as one would, you have the basic building blocks for being a good person.
Cool.
So I'm a sports mad, film mad guy. That's pretty much Cyrus Rogers.
And no relationship to James Harden by chance?
No.
I'm just saying, folks.
Look, beards aside, you know, he's just something else. I'm trying to emulate. That's basically it.
I see it. By the way, have you seen on Instagram, or is it Facebook, where there's a little video caption of a guy in the audience watching the game who looks just like him and has a beard just like him?
Yeah.
I saw that the other day and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Look like twins.
It's fandom to the next level, because people want to be the stars that they admire. That's actually all. It's kind of something that I've brought into the talk that I give. Yeah. Because there's a connection that we have. Sometimes you might just be sitting at home watching the game on the couch, whatever the sport might be. Yeah. But there's a connection that happens.
Exactly.
And that's almost on a soul level, you know, where you admire somebody, and so you pick up traits from them or teams of that ilk.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I mean, I'm sure we're going to explore a bit of that a little bit later. But currently married, you also involved in sporting.
Very married, very happy.
Yes. No, we love Jody.
Yeah. Oh, what a lady. Yes. I'm involved in the media as such, so I'm at Kwese. Kwese Sports. Right. Doing all sorts of different stuff there. I'm the editor for the NBA.com website for Africa, which has been a journey on its own, having wound my way through the likes of SuperSport, and then having cut my teeth in various disciplines. You know, having produced programming from property shows to gardening shows, and you know, from a business TV perspective, and then finally getting to work in my passion, which is sport. And I think that you know, when you look at what life throws you, you know, these curveballs, you also realize that these are the lessons that are the building blocks for who you are.
True.
And so I've always felt, okay, fine, if I had to sit in a cold, dark room cutting promo videos for 16 hours at a time, it will teach me something, and it has eventually.
Makes you humble. Now you have to come from your big Kwese Sport set to our little Exceptional TV set. I mean,
this is what TV is. This is what it is. You know, studios of varying shapes and sizes always do one thing, and that's provide people who are watching with good content.
Yep, that's what we
And
need.
this is what this is, right?
Yeah. So we met quite a few years ago, right? And we met obviously in a speaking environment. So obviously you're speaking, and you're also an MC extraordinaire, and of course that voice.
I know it's
been called that. Has it been called the velvet voice?
The velvet voice.
The velvet voice, and you know, like we don't even have to edit you. Like with me, I don't know how you're gonna, how my producer is gonna do this when the edit comes, because I need to have that Barker-Haynes sound.
We'll see what we can arrange for you. Yeah. Maybe we'll dub your stuff with my voice.
Yeah. So Cyrus, you also speak on leadership, right? You have a keynote. You speak on is it leading in the winner's circle?
Leading in the winner's circle.
What inspired that?
So, okay, to take a little step back. Now, I've spoken about the fact that sport is one of my passions.
Right.
I felt that people as a whole, individuals, groups, even companies, were finding it hard to look at ways to motivate themselves, to inspire themselves on a daily basis. Sometimes it's, just sort of waking up in the morning trying to get something done. And other times it's really about not understanding how to remain focused or work towards a shared goal or even an individual goal. So this came about from me looking at what my life experiences had been. Okay. And how everything that we go through is a learning experience.
That's true.
So even if I'm sitting and watching a football game on TV, you could easily allow that to sort of wash over you, and it doesn't really, nothing permeates. But there's always something to be learned. So for instance, you're in a living room, you've got friends together, you're watching a basketball game, and you'll find everybody shouting their analysis. Oh, why did he pass here? Why didn't that guy dunk? Why couldn't he have done these things? And you realize that we go into our own level of expertise, which means that we have an understanding and a capability that often goes untapped. And so leading in the winner's circle is about trying to get those seeds to germinate within people, to allow those to grow, and then to also give them the building blocks as individuals, as teams, and as companies to see what the future can hold. So that's really where that came from. Yeah, I wanted to inspire.
Yeah. And sport is a good analogy, a good example of how that plays out. One of the things I've always seen in sport is you have the sportsman and then you have the obsessive sportsman. If you think about the greats, right? You and I share a passion in basketball. If you think about a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant or a LeBron James, right? There's always that argument like, oh, these three, who's the GOAT?
The greatest,
how do you measure them? Is it on rings? Is it on impact? And then there's always this argument, okay, in Michael Jordan's time, the competition wasn't as fierce as now.
And or even worse then, because
or maybe it was worse then, or like Will Chamberlain. I mean, how many games did he score? Over 100. Amazing stuff. But I'm a Kobe Bryant fan big time. I think Michael Jordan was the greatest, but I'm a Kobe fan first. Yeah. And I admire his relentless attitude of coming to work 2 hours before everybody else comes and literally practicing for 2 whole hours, then practicing with everybody else, and then when everybody else leaves, he stays on to make sure he scores those 300 three-pointers, and then he goes home. How do you translate that in the workspace? That obsessiveness about excellence.
Some people call it perfectionism, right? I think the thing about that, and I'm happy to use the word excellence, because what Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James all did was they focused on self. Right. What they did was they internalized everything. They knew what their tasks were. So as a sports person, you really know what it is you do. Yeah. You either play basketball, and what does that entail? Working with your hands. So if you know what your failings are, you have to improve those. Then you also know that there are certain things that have to become second nature to you. So you don't have to be there thinking, oh gosh, what do I do in order to make this shot or to make that pass? These things become second nature. Now, in a business environment, your business has got to be run almost like a team, where you look at it in terms of who are your key players. I like to look at Sir Alex Ferguson as one of the best analogies, because a manager of a football team has got to know exactly who and what everybody does. You know exactly who is your striker, what they're good at, and you feed them the way they need to be fed. Okay. Because they don't necessarily always play the same way. Like a LeBron James is not the same as a Kyrie Irving. Yes. A Steph Curry is very different to a Kevin Durant. Yeah. They don't need the same stuff, but they need to work on the same things. Yes. Make sure you get the basics right. Once those are covered, then you make sure that you start working on what makes you a standout performer. Yeah. Now, but sometimes being a standout performer doesn't carry the team. Exactly. Like we saw, right? The recent playoffs between Golden State and Cleveland. LeBron, literally a one-man team. Yeah.
record-breaking points in playoff. I mean, it's ridiculous. But
breaking records,
but when you've got a team that can't measure up in the corporate environment, I've always heard them saying, don't make an individual a rock star in corporate, make the team the rock star. What is your understanding around that, especially using sports analogy? I mean, if I think of Golden State,
that's a team of rock stars.
It's a team of rock stars, right? And I don't like the Golden State. Oh.
That's your problem.
But I respect their craft.
Exactly.
Steph Curry, amazing. He's going to go down in history as probably the best three-point shot ever.
Yeah.
He's getting to breaking records in half the time.
He's setting records people didn't even know needed to be broken or set.
Breaking his own records season to season. Yeah.
So look at it from a corporate environment, right? Yeah. You understand as a leader in any space, whether it be in a big corporate or even in a small team, you know who performs well. Right. One of the things you have to do is then make sure you don't overburden that person and understand that when you give them tasks to do, you're not letting everybody else off the hook. Yeah. So to use the Cleveland Cavaliers example, right? You've got a LeBron James who carries your team. Right. But what is the work everyone else is doing? Right. Make sure that they are doing the things that they have to do. In the Cavaliers case, they fell short because a lot of these guys didn't perform when they were expected to deliver. And they weren't expected to deliver the way LeBron James was expected to deliver. So the mark and the measure is totally different there. Give them achievable goals, but make sure that they meet those targets. So if LeBron's goal is to score 30 points, make sure that the guys on his team are scoring 10. And LeBron's job is to facilitate for those guys to be able to do that. What happens sometimes is, like, for instance, your star performer thinks that they need to take too much on themselves, or you, as the manager, might decide, oh gosh, I can't let this guy do that, I've got to take care of it. Yeah. Delegate.
I find that, and that brings me to the point of emotional drain and mental drain, especially if you think about your topic, leading in a winner's circle. When you have, and LeBron's really a good example, I used to follow all those stats in the playoffs, and you'd find most points LeBron, most rebounds LeBron, most assists LeBron, which means he was passing the ball, which means he was defending, which means he was in the offense as well. And every time they lost to the Golden State, when they were having the interviews, he was very irritated, very irritable, because he wasn't winning. It's only after the fourth game when he admitted his loss. He was happy during the interview. I mean, he was kind of like, it was almost like a relief.
The pressure's gone.
The pressure's gone. Now, how do people in leadership manage pressure in such a very complex world?
So this really comes down to sharing the load. So it is a lot like what you would do in terms of trying to ensure everybody's got their job. Pressure is always going to be the determining factor between winning and losing. Those who handle the pressure better are the ones who win the most. Now, what LeBron James did is that he almost becomes very selfish. So he takes care of absolutely everything because he can shoot, because he can pass, because he can defend.
But is it an intentional selfishness, or is it a responsibility kind of
It's a little bit of both.
It kind of feels like they're counting on me. Because I can see today Kevin Love's not on form. He's not hitting those threes. J.R. Smith hasn't come to the party. I've got to pick up my game. And I feel like, should I really pass to George? No.
And that is when you start doubting your teammates. Right? The biggest mistake one can make as a leader is withdrawing the responsibility from the people you've given the responsibility to. Allow them to make the mistakes if they're even going to do that. Alex, one of the things that you have to do is you have to understand that once you've delegated a task to somebody, you have to give them the opportunity to succeed. Now, LeBron is operating on the fly. He sees, okay, fine, I've given this guy one open shot, he's missed it. Maybe I need to take that shot the next time. You can't carry on doing that, because what happens is LeBron tops all of the stats sheets and you lose. You have to empower the guys there. So how many of LeBron's teammates think, I've got to take this shot? They think, how can I best get the ball to LeBron? So the decision-making process is no longer on their shoulders. It's actually even taken off the coach's shoulders too. Because then everybody turns to that one guy. And this is where you have to ensure that the guys you have in your team will do the things they have to do. Golden State are the perfect example. And one of the things I love about them as a team is the sacrifices they make. In order to have a team of rock stars, you can't all pay them all top dollar. So they themselves as individuals have taken the decision to leave money on the table. That's tough for a sports person. Your career is finite, right? But you know that in order to succeed and get those championships and those big rings that they wear, they will leave the money aside. They'll also allow each other to be the top player in any game. So Klay Thompson can go and score 25 points in a game while Kevin Durant almost takes the night off. Right? Other teams don't have that luxury. So you have to try and get to a space where people are either operating at the best optimal level, or that your star player takes a lot of the load and you know exactly which bits and pieces you have to take care of. If you are trying to do it all on your own, you're going the wrong way. And if you then, I mean, you have to draw a line somewhere. So if you've given somebody 7 shots and they've missed 7 of them, you don't keep giving them the 8th one.
If someone doesn't realize that it's like there's like 2 seconds left, that guy should not have the ball.
And that's it. And
we know who we're talking about. One last question before I ask you around calls to action, and that is, again, and it's great to use sports as an analogy because I find that it also works in the corporate environment. So now you've got a team of rock stars. So you've got a team of top performing corporate executives, top salespeople who are in themselves these giants. And now you have to lead them. If you think about Steve Kerr, right? He's got to lead Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, who's a firebrand, Klay Thompson, who's like, I wonder if he has a personality, Kevin Durant, who is an amazing player, people who are like people who would want to crucify someone like Zaza Pachulia.
But he's a role player.
And how do you manage such rock stars? How do you manage a really very strong team that also has strong opinions? Who might actually tell you, well, actually, listen, we know you've given us these targets. Can you just relax?
So there's 2 ways of looking at it, and this is what's great about sport. We've spoken a lot about basketball. Let's take, for instance, football analogy, and I'll go back to let's say Alex Ferguson. Now, Alex Ferguson is one of the greatest managers that football has ever seen. But what Alex Ferguson had to deal with was also manage star players. When a star player's ego became too big for the team, that person had to be moved across. So you look at David Beckham. I mean, it seemed criminal to sell David Beckham. But Man United didn't suffer as a brand. So what you do as a leader in those particular spaces is you either lean on your years of experience, having done something, and that has to count for some level of respect. But you don't necessarily push that in anybody's face and say, oh, well, I've done X, Y, and Z. They need to know that you're the boss for a reason. The other thing about it is some people have done by example. Steve Kerr, for instance, he's a champion with the Chicago Bulls. He'd done it all. He'd played with the very best. So he knew exactly what it takes to win. He also knows what it takes to be part of a winning team. He might not necessarily have been the star. He wasn't Michael Jordan. But playing with MJ gives you so many different insights. Don't forget that Phil Jackson was also the coach of that team. And so one of the best coaches in basketball, saying, I have all of this experience. I learned from Phil. So the experience that you have, the way that you utilize that in terms of your communications with your teammates and also with those who might be your subordinates, really is critical because you want to get them on board, understand the team first dynamic. If you're operating in a team, it's got to be team first. Golden State Warriors are known as the team. The Cleveland Cavaliers are known as LeBron James's team.
That's true.
And when you've got that dynamic, who's the boss?
We're on set with Cyrus Rogers, but we're going to wrap it up now, Cyrus, as I said earlier. Just share with us 3 nuggets, 3 calls to action that our viewers can take away, something implementable, something that they can use in their workplace or in their personal lives.
Okay. One of the things that I love, and in my talk, Leading in the Winner's Circle, I talk about there being 5 key elements to leadership.
Right.
I'll sort of go into 3 of these.
Right.
So the first one being perspicacity. I know that's a word I love.
I love that word. I love it.
It's fantastic. And it's really about having acute mental vision and shrewdness. Right. So that means make sure you do your planning.
Right.
Make sure you've got something in place for every eventuality. You can't cover everything, right? But what you can do is look at what your goals are, plan towards those, and give yourself a step-by-step process.
Right.
Because once you've done that, you've done half the work.
Good.
The other thing is doggedness. Doggedness really, it deals with determination.
Yes.
But the thing about it is that it's also about making sure that when the going gets tough, you don't give up, you just carry on looking at exactly what your goal is. So it goes hand in hand with perspicacity because, like you said, Kobe Bryant would train for hours before training.
Yes.
And then for hours after training.
Yeah.
And that's really about making sure that he stays determined and dogged at that task, never give up. The last one is really one of my favorites, and that's really got to do with communication.
Right.
Communication is about speaking. It's about speaking up when you have to. But the critical thing about communication is listening.
Oh, yeah.
The very best leaders are the ones who listen. But that listening has to be with a purpose. You can't just keep an eye on what somebody's saying, an ear on what somebody's saying, and then completely forget it. You've got to take in what people are saying.
Yes.
Disseminate that, and then communicate back to them. Tell them that you've heard what they're talking about. And you are willing to listen even further if need be, but here are your strategies.
I've heard what you talked about. You said perspicacity, doggedness, and communication.
That's it.
I was listening.
Alex, you are
that
proof
is fantastic.
That it works.
Cyrus, thank you so much for being on set with me today and for sharing all these great nuggets. It's always great catching up with you. We've done our bit of traveling together and had fun around the country. So thank you for sharing your bit today.
There's something to be said about trying to inspire.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we do enough of that as a society.
True.
And really, this is what's so critical because the world is a tough place to live in.
I can imagine.
And we get through it all together.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Cheers. Well, that's it. It's a wrap. Remember to do the things that need to be done. Follow us on all our social media pages. If you want to get in touch, it's alex@exceptionaltv.co.za. Until next time, I'm out.